She stood in the corner of that gleaming military dining hall, hands trembling as she balanced the silver tray, watching the generals laugh and toast while her superior officer, Colonel Hartman, barked orders at her like she was nothing more than a servant. But what none of them knew, what Hartman had deliberately hidden, was that the woman serving their lunch had more combat experience than half the men in that room combined. Her name was Captain Sarah Mitchell, and just 6 months ago, she'd been leading tactical operations in one of the most dangerous regions on Earth. She'd saved 17 lives during an ambush that should have killed her entire unit. She'd carried wounded soldiers through enemy fire, made split-second decisions that changed the course of entire missions, and earned herself the Silver Star, one of the military's highest honors for valor in combat. But Colonel Hartman, he didn't care about any of that. To him, Sarah was just another woman who'd stepped too far into his world, and from the moment she'd been transferred to his command, he'd made it his personal mission to break her spirit. He'd reassigned her from tactical planning to administrative duties, then from administrative duties to supply management. And now he'd gone even further, forcing her to serve lunch during this high-profile meeting with visiting generals, treating her like she was nothing more than hired help. "Mitchell," Hartman's voice cut across the room, sharp and condescending. "These glasses are spotted. Do I need to teach you how to polish silverware, or is that beyond your skill set?" The other junior officers in the room shifted uncomfortably. They knew what was happening. They'd seen Hartman's vendetta play out week after week, but no one dared speak up. Not against a colonel, not when their own careers hung in the balance. Sarah swallowed her anger, kept her eyes down, and returned to the kitchen to polish glasses that didn't need polishing. This was her life now. This was what happened when you reported a superior officer for misconduct, when you stood up for what was right instead of what was easy. Hartman had connections, and he'd used every single one of them to ensure her complaint disappeared into bureaucratic oblivion, while he systematically destroyed everything she'd worked for. But then, as Sarah returned with the tray of freshly polished glasses, something shifted. One of the visiting generals, a weathered man with gray hair and sharp, observant eyes, had been watching the entire exchange with increasing discomfort. General Marcus Webb wasn't like the other officers enjoying their lunch. He'd risen through the ranks by recognizing talent and calling out injustice. And something about this situation felt deeply, fundamentally wrong. As Sarah approached to refill his water glass, General Webb's eyes caught something, a glint of metal barely visible beneath the collar of her uniform. She'd tried to keep it hidden, knowing that Hartman would find some excuse to remove it. But the silver star pin was there, tucked discreetly where only someone looking closely would notice. The general's expression changed instantly. His eyes widened, then narrowed with understanding. He glanced at her name tag, then back at the medal, and suddenly pieces started falling into place. He'd heard stories about a Captain Mitchell, extraordinary stories about bravery under fire, about a female officer who'd accomplished what most men couldn't even imagine. "Excuse me, Captain?" General Webb's voice rang out clearly, deliberately using her rank. The room fell silent. "Captain Sarah Mitchell, correct?" Sarah froze, her heart pounding. "Yes, sir." "You're the Mitchell from Operation Desert Shield? The one who held that extraction point against impossible odds?" The color drained from Colonel Hartman's face. He opened his mouth to interrupt, but General Webb raised a hand, silencing him without even looking in his direction. "Yes, sir," Sarah said quietly, standing straighter now, her voice finding its strength. "I was." General Webb stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "Gentlemen, do you realize who's been serving our lunch? This officer received the Silver Star for valor just 6 months ago. She saved 17 lives while injured herself, held a defensive position for 4 hours against overwhelming enemy forces, and single-handedly coordinated a rescue operation that military strategists are still studying." He turned to Hartman, his voice dropping to ice. "Colonel, would you care to explain why a decorated combat officer is polishing your silverware?" The room erupted. Other generals stood, demanding answers. Junior officers stared in shock, and Hartman's carefully constructed world of petty tyranny, began crumbling around him like a sand castle in a hurricane. "Sir, I can explain," Hartman stammered. "You'll explain to the Inspector General," General Webb cut him off, "along with why Captain Mitchell's misconduct complaint against you seems to have vanished." He turned to Sarah, his expression softening. "Captain Mitchell, you'll be coming with me. I'm personally overseeing your reassignment to Strategic Operations Command. Effective immediately. Your talents are wasted here. They always were." As Sarah walked out of that dining hall, head held high, following General Webb past the stunned faces of officers who'd watched her humiliation in silence, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. The silver star on her uniform caught the light, no longer hidden, no longer something to be ashamed of or forced to conceal. Sometimes justice doesn't come easy. Sometimes you have to endure the fire before someone recognizes your worth. But when that moment comes, when someone finally sees you for who you truly are, it makes every moment of struggle worth it. Sarah Mitchell didn't just survive Colonel Hartman's cruelty. She rose above it, proving that true valor can't be hidden forever, and that honor, real honor, will always find a way to shine through.